I have loved Anne-Marie Santos for almost my entire life. I have loved her since I first understood what love was. In middle school, we were best friends. In high school, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. In college, we were lovers. And after graduation, we got married. I knew I wanted to marry Anne-Marie from the first kiss. My parents tried to set me up with other girls. They were very concerned that Anne-Marie and I were too close at such a young age. I understood their point of view, but it didn't matter to me. I never felt like I had to hold back or give anything up to be with Anna Marie. I think if I had, we would have just broken up. I chose the college I wanted to attend based solely on academic criteria, and it just so happened that it also provided the best opportunities for Anna Marie. We had many different friends and interests. We spent a lot of time apart. But the best times were when we were together. She was my best friend, and I married her. Anne Marie was my complete opposite in many ways. She was outgoing, and I was reserved. She was short, 5'5" at her best. I was tall, 6'04" when I stopped growing. She was emotional, and I was calm. She had a large family, and I was an only child. She was athletic, and I was always fit and sporty, but my interests were more academic. She was a devout Catholic. I believed in God, but was skeptical about religion. I was reasonably good-looking. She was very, very beautiful. I wasn't a movie star, and she wasn't a model, but we were well suited to each other. I can't say exactly what sparked our mutual attraction, only that it was genuine. When we were children, she would tease me affectionately, and I would pretend to know how a gentleman should behave. I would watch her play, and she would come to my debates. I was always proud of her, no matter what she was doing, and her smile always let me know she felt the same way. We never made plans, but we always ended up together. I never made her choose me, and she never asked me to change a single thing about myself, but in the end, we always put each other first, and we could talk to each other about anything, about dreams, fears, desires. We always shared everything. That's why it was so shocking, and that's why it hurt so much. I wasn't sure I believed in soulmates, but if I did, she would have been mine. We were caring and attentive. It was more than just passion. When I asked her father for permission to marry his youngest daughter, he grilled me. He asked me about everything related to our relationship. I admit, at first I panicked. I didn't know what to say, but then I saw Anne-Marie watching our conversation from the window. At that moment, I knew I had to answer honestly and decisively. If I wanted her hand, I had to earn it. I explained to him that, although she had touched my heart, I had chosen to love her. I had made that choice. I convinced him that I knew what that meant, for better, for worse, no matter what. No matter what happened. 3 short years later, the worst happened, and I made my decision. I still loved her and still wanted her to be happy, even if I wasn't happy. I sat alone, trying to hold back my emotions. She knew me well enough to understand how I would react. I'm sure she took that into account. Even in a state of emotional turmoil, she always knew how I would react. In this case, everything was different. In the past, my predictability was a source of strength for her. Now, she would be free of it. But how I treated her was entirely up to me. She came home late from work. Again. Unfortunately, over the past 4 months, this had become the norm in our house. It was this and the change in her behavior that gave me the first clue. The fact that she no longer smiled when she saw me hurt me much more than finding out the details. Seeing with your own eyes that the person you love no longer loves you is terrible. She quietly entered the dining room. I was lost in my thoughts, but I still noticed her arrival. "Hi, Annie." "Hi, Gavin. Are you okay?" "No, not really. Please sit down for a minute and I'll explain why." I rehearsed my speech and hoped I wouldn't stray too far from the script. I wasn't sure I could make the right decision if I was forced to, and I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to be brave and honest in the face of the most difficult challenge of my life, letting Annie Marie go. "Annie, I love you with all my heart. I always have, and I'm sure I always will. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to call you names or blame you. I want us to sit down and decide together what we're going to do, okay?" "Of course, Gavin. What are you talking about?" Her eyes betrayed her attempt to hide her anxiety, however slight. "Annie, more than anything in the world, I want you to be happy. I don't know why. The thought has been with me ever since we first kissed. And although it hurts me to say it, I know you're not happy with me." Tears welled up in her eyes. Strangely enough, I was comforted by the fact that she was at least a little upset about leaving me. I really don't want to discuss all the details. I'm afraid that if I know too much, it will hurt me and prevent me from moving on. I don't want you to think I'm a coward, but I would appreciate it if we could just agree that I know for sure that you're not happy with me. Do you understand what I mean, Annie? She whispered back, "Yes, Gavin. I know what you mean." Thank you, Annie. The fact that you don't deny it helps me believe that I'm making the right choice. Annie, I want a divorce. Miguel Santos had an inner strength that I had always admired. He and his wife Maria were raising 4 sons and 4 daughters in a small 3-bedroom house in a rough neighborhood. He was 175 centimeters tall, with a physique hardened by the streets and hard physical labor, with matching tattoos and scars. I'm sure he was one of the strongest men I have ever met. That is also impressive. But he earned my respect with his loyalty and devotion to his wife and family. So I decided to explain my decision to him and warn him. We sat on the back porch, chatting over a pint of beer when he finally got me to tell him my story. Miko, will you tell me why you came here? Yes, I'd like to, but it's more complicated than I thought. I hoped he would remain calm long enough for me to tell the whole story. Sir, ever since I first saw your daughter, I haven't loved anyone but her. I promised you on this very porch that I would always put her needs before my own. I came here today to tell you that I believe that's what I'm doing, even though I'm leaving Anne-Marie. Everything went as I expected. He was angry with me. Of course, there were a few bilingual phrases. He demanded an explanation. I couldn't give it to him. Sir, all I can say is that I love your daughter, and that some things will remain a secret between her and me until she feels it is right to discuss them with you. It hurts me to sit here and admit that my marriage to your daughter has not worked out. But I believe it is for the best. I only ask that you respect my decision to tell you this in private, because I believe you deserve to hear it from me. After a while, he calmed down enough to let me tell him some of the details. When I left, he was embarrassed and upset, but he let me go without saying anything else. Anne-Marie didn't cry. She was on the verge of tears for a few minutes, but they never came. She didn't argue with me or attack my manhood. I was glad of that. But deep down, I hoped she would beg me to stay and change my mind. But she didn't. I felt calmer, knowing that my decision to leave without a fight was the right one. The only time she flinched was when I mentioned my conversation with her father. I spoke to your father this afternoon. I explained to him what I am about to explain to you. I just hope that out of respect for our past together, we can part ways without a long battle. I don't want to deal with the possibility of financial ruin on top of everything else. I plan to leave as soon as our divorce is finalized. I've prepared the papers. There are several options for dividing our limited assets. The most important of these is your decision regarding our house. Discuss them with whomever you want and let me know by the end of next week. Okay, Gavin, I'll look at them. I can already hear the moaning. Why not send my wife and her lover to the special forces using my top-secret ninja and spy skills? First of all, I don't have those skills. The last time I got into a fight was in 10th grade, when a senior tried unsuccessfully to make friends with Anna-Marie. I was furious when I found her crying in the school parking lot. It was only by sheer luck that I didn't catch up with the guy on school grounds. I would have been expelled for sure. My father grounded me for a month. I considered myself lucky when his parents decided not to press charges. Years later, I found out that I had Miguel Santos to thank for that. He convinced the other guy's father that dropping the charges was the best option for everyone. The second factor that influenced my decision was my own mental health. I'd been a mess for weeks. I wasn't sleeping well, and at work, one mistake was all it would take to get me fired. Most importantly, I had no one to turn to. My mother died of breast cancer during my last year of college, right before graduation. My father, in order to cope with his grief, turned to alcohol and became a completely different person. 6 months after her death, he moved to Florida. And I haven't heard from him in almost 4 years. I needed to start my life over and leave my hometown. To do that, I needed money. Everything I had belonged to Anne-Marie. So I needed her to agree to my decision to divorce and start over. I was only 25 years old and I had a plan. If I was lucky, I could survive without going crazy. Revenge was the last thing on my mind. 2 weeks after talking to Anne-Marie, we were sitting in our solicitor's office. Anne-Marie had decided to give up the house, and it was put up for sale. We divided our current and savings accounts, and my meager pension account remained mine. She kept our new car and the payments on it. I kept my 10-year-old truck. That was it. The papers were signed, notarized, and handed over, except for a 90-day waiting period. My next move was something I regretted during the divorce. I lied to Anne-Marie. Where are you going to live, Gavin? I rented a small flat near the office. I'll live there until I decide what to do next. Okay, then I guess we'll see you when the house is sold. At least at the closing, right? Sure, see you soon, Annie. Our solicitor had power of attorney to complete the sale. My van was fueled up and loaded with clothes and my laptop. My engagement ring lay on the kitchen table in what had once been our home, on top of my final note to Anne-Marie. The note read, "Goodbye, I will always love you. Be happy." On my way out of town, I stopped to say goodbye to Miguel Santos. Over the years, he had become much more than a father-in-law to me. Mijo, you and Anna Marie should be together. It's obvious to everyone. Neither of you wants to talk about what happened. Can you forgive her? Remember your vows before God and your family? It's too much and too fast. Yes, too fast. Sir, I have found forgiveness in my heart. I love your daughter and want only the best for her. Now I need to find peace. Maria Santos hugged me at the door, letting me know that she understood more than she was saying. When she finally let me go, she put her hand on my cheek, closed her eyes, and stood silently for a while. When she opened her eyes again, she spoke in a voice only I could hear. God bless you, mijo. I'll miss you. I had to leave before I started crying. When your spouse is clearly unhappy with you, it's good to know why. I didn't know. There were little things that came up from time to time, putting the toilet seat down, picking up socks, loading the washing machine. But in the last few months, we hadn't argued about anything trivial. I thought maybe she was overworked. She was clearly working longer hours than usual. I asked her about it. She said she had to work more, but that everything would be fine. So I did the only thing I knew wouldn't cause me any more trouble. I started doing more housework than I should have. I started cooking dinner more often and washing the dishes right after. I washed and folded towels and sheets. I dusted the furniture and washed the windows. I tried to do everything that might catch her attention, anything that might melt her icy attitude towards me. After a few weeks, I broke down and tackled the job I hated most, cleaning the bathroom. If I hadn't done that, it would probably have been a long time before I found out. I know I would never have thrown the rubbish out of the bathroom. I know I wouldn't have noticed the box of pregnancy tests. This piqued my curiosity, and I started rummaging through the trash until I found the positive test. This led me to the medicine cabinet and a full pack of birth control pills. I thought about it and came to a terrible conclusion. We hadn't had sex in at least 7 weeks. For almost 2 months, we had been making excuses that we didn't feel well, were too tired, or too stressed. It was the longest period we had gone without sex, but I didn't think about the possible consequences. I had to be wrong, but I knew I wasn't. Another man had made my wife pregnant. But who? The answer to that question didn't take long to come. I called Anne-Marie and prepared myself to ask her the agonizing question. Her direct line was being forwarded to reception. I asked to be put through to Anne-Marie, but was told that Miss O'Connor had already left. I decided not to leave a message. Her car was still in the car park when I arrived at her office about 20 minutes later. My faint hope that she had been in an accident and someone was desperately trying to contact me was dashed. 30 minutes later, I had answers to all my questions. Her boss, Michael James, had stopped his car right next to Anna Marie's. She got out of the passenger door and walked over to him. I saw her smile as they finished kissing, openly, carefree. My smile freely given to another. That was all I needed to know. I was a few minutes ahead of her. That evening, it wasn't hard to hide my feelings from her. She barely glanced in my direction. It took a little over 2 hours before I realized that my marriage was over, and why. It was a 20-hour drive to Las Vegas. I made it in 4 days. I spent the first day driving through Nebraska and Colorado. I took my time driving through the mountains of Colorado and Utah because I liked the peace and quiet I found crossing the Great Divide, and because I wasn't sure my truck could handle the terrain. At first I was worried about the engine, but by the end of the trip I was more concerned about the brakes. At the end of the 4th day, I lay down on an uncomfortable mattress in a hotel near the boulevard. I slept for the next 18 hours. It didn't take long to register, buy books, and fill out housing applications. Less than a week ago, I was a 25-year-old recently divorced student with a volatile ex-wife and no family. Now, I was a first-year law student living in a one-room dorm with a shared kitchen and bathroom. I was on my way to a new life. I would like to tell you about my new adventures and acquaintances after returning to student life. But there was nothing like that. I had no experience in relationships. There was only Gavin and Anne-Marie. I didn't even know where to start. I can say that in all my time at law school, I never had a single date. I didn't even have any close friends. If a girl showed interest in me, I didn't notice the signals. Instead, I used my studies as a refuge and put all my energy into my work. I spent the next 4 years earning a law degree and a master's degree in business administration. It wasn't such a crazy idea. I was preparing to get a 4.0 GPA. Anne-Marie and I discussed going back to university when our financial situation became more stable. When I decided it was time to move on, the first thing I did was take the LSAT and fill out the applications. Why Las Vegas? They were the first to accept me with a full scholarship and grant. I knew nothing about the university or the city except that it had the program I wanted and that it was far from my hometown. About once a month, I sent Mr. and Mrs. Santos a letter telling them about my classes and life in graduate school. It was a habit I picked up from my parents when I was a student. Maybe it was a routine, or maybe I hoped that someone in the world was interested in what I was doing. 13 weeks after the start of the first semester, a package arrived. Now I knew the exact amount in dollars. My love and heart were worth $7,142 days, after fees and expenses, of course. It was probably the third most depressing day of my life. Periodically, every few weeks, I would receive an email from Miguel or Maria Santos. I never told them where I really was, and they never asked. They shared news about their 7 children, but never about Ana Maria. This allowed me to imagine that I had a family that missed me. I don't know if it helped, but I felt less alone, so I kept in touch with them. During the first 6 or 7 months, there were always hints, but nothing explicit. Forgiveness, reconciliation, fatherhood, responsibility. They never said it directly, but they never missed an opportunity to share strategic, encouraging anecdotes. And then suddenly, the reminders and hints stopped. I never doubted that Anne-Marie would keep the baby. But I wondered if she would tell her parents the truth before the baby was born and could no longer be hidden. I also wondered if Michael James would divorce his wife, abandon his 3 children, and do the right thing for Anne-Marie. I could only guess because I didn't have the courage to ask. But I knew that the chances of a child born to a black man looking like me or inheriting my light brown hair, fair skin, or green eyes were slim. I felt a little cowardly when I sent flowers, balloons, and a gift basket to the Jameses' house to congratulate Mr. James and Anne-Marie on the birth of their child. I sent a copy of the congratulatory message to Anne-Marie's office, addressed to the company president. I promised myself that I would never stoop so low as to deliberately hurt someone, even Michael James. But the pain was still too strong. I had to do something. I didn't spread malicious rumors, I just congratulated him. In fact, I was genuinely happy for Anne-Marie. She always talked about how much she loved children. We talked about wanting a big family, lots of children, and hopefully grandchildren. She was pursuing her dream, and I was happy for her. But I didn't forget that her happiness had come at the cost of my pain, and not knowing what had really happened after I gave her my gifts. I could imagine a catastrophic outcome for Michael James, however unlikely. Fortunately, that simple act of cowardice allowed me to close that chapter of my life. I was still suffering greatly. But it was over, and nothing could be changed. It didn't help my social life. I didn't have one, and I wouldn't have one for several more years. I met my first real friend after my divorce at work, and he was 20 years older than me. The small law firm I joined specialized in real estate transactions. The starting salary exceeded my expectations, but it wasn't sky high. I was good with contracts, always good with numbers, and later found out that I was good with people. Gavin, people need to look you in the eye and know that you can solve their problems. They're handing you the keys to their dreams and trusting you not to let them down. You have a gift, and I'm going to show you how to use it. David Rothschild was the senior partner assigned to review my work. In reality, he did much more than that. He became my mentor, coach, and life coach. Rothschild was a living legend in the legal community, handling multi-million-dollar real estate deals and a first-rate negotiator. He was loved and, more importantly, respected by state and local politicians, the business community, and the gaming industry. Everything he touched turned to gold. He simply did not allow failure. Fortunately for me, He decided I would be his next project. I will never forget his first assessment of my work just 90 days into my legal career. Gavin, as a lawyer, you are dedicated, hardworking, and attentive. You are creative and know the law very well. You are doing an excellent job. In response to the compliment, I allowed myself a brief smile. Thank you, Mr. Rothschild. As a person, you completely misunderstand your job. Are you 30 or 90? What's going on with you? Don't bother answering. Let's go for a walk. And so I found myself sitting across from David Rothschild, real estate mogul, king of Las Vegas, for what would become our weekly evaluation of the Gavin Project. By the end of our first session, I understood why he was so good at what he did. He asked me a few questions and then gave me a chance to speak. From time to time, he asked clarifying questions, told a story or an anecdote, and then listened to me again. I told him everything. I told him about my life since childhood, about my parents, about law school, and most importantly, about Anne Marie. I told him things I had never told anyone before, and I felt completely safe. He ended our conversation in the only way he knew how. Well, we have some work to do. Fortunately, we have some work to do. Now let's get back to the office. I'm not paying you to chat all day. I had no idea what his motives were because we never discussed them. At first, I didn't quite understand what he was trying to achieve, but after 3 years, the results were clear. He was often so elusive that I didn't even realize what he was doing until it was done. He planted the seed, and I found the flower. He commented on photos, articles, films, TV shows, or books. Something clicked in my head, and I updated my wardrobe, went to the gym, learned to cook, made better investments, and bought property. Without his help, I would have lived a perfectly pleasant middle-class life, but with his help, I became a confident, successful, young, and promising business tycoon. I made the right choices, met the right people, and participated in lucrative deals. I never knew how to thank him, but he didn't want any gratitude. Even though his father showed him how to hold a club, Tiger hits the ball himself and wins tournaments, Gavin. The only gratitude I need, or will ever need, is to see your success. I had been working for Rothschild for almost 5 years when he stopped pushing me to succeed in business and started working on my personal life and, more importantly, my soul. One day, he dropped the first bombshell when he happened to drop by my office and sat down in one of the guest chairs. Gavin, what are you getting your parents for their anniversary? I was puzzled by the question. He must have remembered that my mother had died many years ago. I was sure he knew that my father had died of liver failure last year. He was the one who had given me time off to go to the funeral in Florida. When I looked at him, he was enjoying my confusion. Come on, Gavin. Next month, Miguel and Maria Santos are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. I'm sure you've already thought of a suitable gift. Only an idiot wouldn't celebrate such an important event. Damn ungrateful children. With that, he triumphantly walked away. He was right. The Santos family was like parents to me. I wrote them messages at least once a month. In my second year of law school, I started calling them on their birthdays. Sometimes I even sent them gifts or cards for holidays, including flowers on Mother's Day. After about a year, I stopped hiding my whereabouts and could always count on a nice card from Mary on my birthday and a package at Christmas. 50 years of marriage is a lifetime achievement that deserves the very best. That's exactly what I gave them. First-class plane tickets, accommodation at a 5-star spa hotel, a limousine, tables at the best restaurants in Las Vegas, and VIP tickets to the most popular shows on the Strip. All expenses paid. I sent it all to them in the evening with a note saying, "In honor of your shining example of true loyalty, happy anniversary, contents at your discretion. With love, Gavin." I didn't expect any response to my gift and was surprised when I got a call the next day at noon. Gavin O'Connor. Oh, mijo, what a wonderful surprise, but this is too much. Mrs. Santos, I'm very glad to hear that. But you and your husband deserve this gift, and it was my honor to give it to you. Oh, Gavin, you've always been a wonderful boy. Un momento, Miguel wants to talk. Gavin? Yes, sir. Gavin, this is too much. I can't put you in an awkward position. I can't even imagine how much this cost. It's too much. He went on and on. I couldn't understand how he wasn't choking. Senor Santos? Miguel? Dad? Yes, Gavin. My gift cannot repay you for all the kindness you have shown me over the years. It gives me great pleasure to give it to you. Please accept it with the same kindness with which it was given." After a short pause, he said, "Yes, that's nice. We'll take it." "Wonderful. Happy anniversary." After that, the conversation took a turn that any travel agent would be proud of. I explained as best I could everything that I thought they would enjoy about the trip. After many words of thanks and love, I hung up, and I felt better. Much better. I think it was the first selfless thing I had done in almost 10 years. I was thinking about this when I noticed Rothschild and his broad smile darkening the doorway. "Damn ungrateful kids. Shut up, old man." The Santos holiday didn't go at all as I had expected. I thought they would want to make the most of my gift. See the sights, eat at great restaurants, relax and unwind at the hotel and spa. They did all that, but they dragged me along with them the whole time. But the most important thing they wanted was to spend time with me. And they did that from the moment they checked into the hotel. Judging by the time they arrived, the time it took to get to the hotel, and the few minutes it took to check in, they had been in their room for no more than 5 minutes when my phone rang. "Gavin O'Connor. Miho, when are you coming to meet us?" "Hello, Mrs. Santos. How was your flight?" "Fine, fine. Miguel said we need to rest for a few minutes and then we'll be ready to go." "When will you be here?" "I think I'll be there in about an hour." "Oh, Mijo, great. See you then." To be honest, I hadn't planned on spending time with the Santos family during their trip. They had enough to do as it was. I had a mountain of work on my desk and was thinking about how to rearrange my schedule when Rothschild walked into my office with two assistants. "Gavin, I took the liberty of giving you some time off. I think you need a break. Now go and don't come back for a week, or you're fired." The assistants packed up all my things and quickly left, leaving my desk empty. "Gavin, spend some time with your parents and I'll take care of everything." I did just that. However, I broke one rule. Santos insisted on visiting my office. Rothschild didn't usually joke about employee employment, but when we entered the office, he seemed to be waiting for us. He personally showed the Santos around the office, introducing them to everyone as his parents. Coffee and snacks were waiting for us in the conference room, where he spent almost an hour telling the Santos about my work, praising my achievements, and treating them like royalty. I must say that I was very happy to see Santos beaming with pride when he talked about me. Maria hardly left my side, stroking my hand every time someone said something nice about me. "We are so proud of you, Mijo." The rest of the week went on in the same vein. Rothschild's influence was felt almost everywhere we went. To be honest, I chose the limousine, resort, restaurants, and shows for Santos' trip based on the business contacts I had established over the years. I did a few favors, nothing special really, but Rothschild spared no expense. We were treated like VIPs everywhere we went. We weren't greeted by managers or directors, but by the owners themselves. They told Santos how I had helped them in their business and offered us the best seats in the house, the best wine from their cellars, or the best they had to offer. It was truly impressive. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, I must admit that this week has been too intense. I know all these people and have worked with them, but I have never received such a high level of service before. I'm afraid my everyday life is much more modest. Gavin, we think it's wonderful that you have so many friends who want to show us how special you are to them. We've always known you're a special young man, and we've always been proud to call you that. Maria Santos didn't have time to finish before Miguel easily joined the conversation. "Our son, you are who you are and who you will always be. You made a vow before God that made you part of our family. You have fulfilled every part of that vow. You have been a constant presence in our lives since childhood, and we have been honored to watch you grow into a wonderful man. A father could not ask for more. Gavin, we love you and are very proud of you." Miguel Santos had aged a decade, but his strength had not diminished in the slightest. I thought he was going to break a few of my ribs when he hugged me. A moment later, Maria Santos joined our tearful embrace, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like part of a family. It filled my soul with joy. The rest of the trip flew by, and I said goodbye to them with sadness. I promised to visit them soon, but first I had some business to attend to. Once again, Rothschild knew exactly what I needed. I returned to work feeling inspired and more productive. When I told him about my idea, he simply smiled and gave me his blessing. The project was relatively small and didn't generate long-term income, but it was probably the most important project I had ever undertaken. All the necessary documents, except for one, were ready in just 6 weeks. I already had a buyer with full financing. I made a few more phone calls, 7 to be exact, to people who weren't expecting my call. Then, armed with new information on how to close the deal with the remaining property owners, I was ready and booked a plane ticket to my hometown. I was going to visit it for the first time in almost 10 years. I was waiting to board the plane at the airport when I first met Amy and Lydia. They were working at a coffee kiosk in one of the terminals. I felt awkward eavesdropping on their conversation, but they weren't trying to speak quietly. Everyone standing in the line for a latte knew what their problem was. It was actually quite simple. The appliances and plumbing in their apartment had broken down. Their landlord refused to repair them. On top of that, they were told that if they terminated their lease, they would lose their deposit, which meant they would have no money to get out of this terrible situation. When Amy handed me my coffee, I gave her my business card with instructions written on the back. I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. I think I can help you if you want. This is my business card. Call the number on the card and ask for Marcus. Tell him that Gavin, that's me, asked you to find Melvin. Melvin, this is a very important. He'll need your details and your landlord's details. He'll take care of everything. If you need help finding a new place to live, contact Marcus. He'll help you find a good place within your budget. I've written everything on the back of my card. At that moment, my flight was announced. That's my flight. I have to go. Don't worry about the expenses. I'll take care of everything. Just call this number. Marcus, Gavin, Melvin. All right, good luck. Why did I offer to help them? The answer is simple. During my time in real estate, I've seen a lot of jerks. It was Rothschild who taught me the basic principles of working in this business. Gavin, real estate isn't a zero-sum game. There shouldn't be winners and losers. In the best deals, everyone wins. Our clients get a sound investment at a reasonable price. Tenants get high-quality property and everyone makes money. We don't do scams. We're matchmakers, not pimps. So, a few phone calls, a letter, and maybe 30 minutes of work, and one of our paralegals would sort out this jerk and get the two girls out of a bad situation. We do pro bono work from time to time. This case was no exception. Before turning off my phone, I quickly sent Marcus an email so he wouldn't be surprised when he got the call, and so he would know how to pay for his time. The flight to Omaha was relatively short, and I quickly rented a car and picked up my luggage. I drove around the city aimlessly for a few minutes. Nothing much had changed. At least the main landmarks were still there, but there were a few new things. Everything seemed the same, but I no longer felt at home here. I drove through the Santos neighborhood. All the houses except theirs were in a state of disrepair. This area had never been the best, but now it was clearly abandoned. I knew that some things had changed, such as the new residential complex that was my final destination. Its design was unique for this area. Several floors of apartments above commercial premises filled with restaurants, a cinema, and shops, including a grocery store. Next to the building was a large park with several walking paths. Everything was perfect. The apartment I lived in was brand new, with 2 bedrooms, a large open-plan living room, a dining room, and a kitchen, as well as a separate lounge. The large balcony overlooking the park offered a beautiful view of the skyline. The master bedroom and bathroom were like a spa, with a whirlpool bath and a large tiled shower cubicle. The rooms were beautifully furnished and the fixtures and appliances were top of the line. A few photos and personal items, and you'd feel right at home. I expected the Santos to meet me at one of the restaurants, and they arrived on time. They were dressed for a night out on the town, and we had a wonderful dinner, laughing. We could only hope that the rest of the evening would go just as well. Miguel and Maria Santos were both 67 years old and had been married for 50 years. I know what you're thinking. I did the math too. Obviously, they married at different times. Both were young at heart and in good health, but the years of physical labor had taken their toll on Miguel. Maria worked as an assistant administrator to save for retirement. During one of our conversations in Las Vegas, I learned that although they were ready to retire, they didn't think they could afford it and were worried about spending their golden years in a house surrounded by crime and abandoned homes. I hope to change all that. As Rothschild reminded me, that's what children do for their parents. I invited them to my apartment for a late-night party. When we got into the lift, they looked at each other in surprise. I didn't even know this was a hotel, mijo. The rooms must be expensive. Yes, we need to talk about that. When I opened the door to the apartment, they both began to marvel at the room. It was nice to see that they liked it. I asked their 7 children to describe the Santos's dream home. Most of their descriptions were the same, but some details differed. I was sure I had taken everything into account. Their attention was drawn to the champagne. Are we celebrating something? Yes, I hope so. What for? I opened the bottle. Your retirement and your new home. I raised my glass and gestured towards the room. My goodness, this is a gift. We can't accept it. It's too much. Miguel is right, Miko. We can't accept this. Oh, it's not a gift. But you'll have more than enough to buy it. Please sit down. Let's talk. They hesitated a little, but overall everything was going well. When we sign these documents, we will form a partnership. Santos Investment Group. The first thing we will do is buy 19 properties within 2 blocks of your house. Second, we will combine these properties with your current home, apply to the city planning department for a zoning change, and sell them to Property Management International, which plans to use the space to build a hotel, shops, and a car park next to the new arena. We will receive this amount from the sale of our properties within the next 90 days. I handed them a piece of paper with the dollar amount highlighted. I think they were shocked. This apartment is available for rent as is for the next 3 months, with the option to buy it for that amount in 90 days. I handed them a second piece of paper with another dollar amount. Then half of the remaining profit will go towards financing a lifetime annuity for the 2 of you with monthly payments equal to that amount. A third piece of paper was placed on the table. And then you will begin a carefree life in your well-deserved retirement in your new home. I'll just give you some sound business advice and free legal services. The Santos family won't become rich, but they won't have to work a day in their lives. It's more like a silver parachute, and that will be enough. Gavin, how did you manage to do all this in such a short time? Well, buying the plot adjacent to yours took a little effort, but overall it wasn't difficult. Mr. Rothschild found a buyer through his business connections. It turns out that a new gambling establishment is being built across the river in Iowa. We easily agreed on a price once we determined the value of the land given its new purpose. The zoning change was handled by our buyer's connections on the city council, and the rest was just a good investment. Maria Santos cried, but she smiled. Miguel just shook his head. I can't believe it. It's a miracle. It's more than we could have ever imagined. No one deserves this more than you two. I hadn't seen Anna Marie or heard from her in 10 years. Her parents never mentioned her name. Her brothers and sisters, though I rarely spoke to them, never mentioned her name either. I never thought about her. And yet, when I saw her for the first time, it was as if someone had awakened me from a dream. I had loved her all my teenage years and early adulthood, and now I felt nothing. Our meeting was completely accidental. I'm not good at packing, preferring my favorite things to outfits that go together. I needed to buy a few things to wear for my trip. Luckily, one of my favorite shops was in the new shopping center. It hadn't been there when I left town. I had been wandering around the shop for a while when I heard a familiar voice. You have great taste. Anne-Marie looked almost the same as I remembered her. She had aged a little. Her smile wasn't as bright, and she had gained a few pounds. Nothing major. Just a more mature version of the woman I married. Hi, Anne-Marie. What are you doing here? Shopping. You? Oh, I work here. I meant, why are you in town? Finished up some business and visiting old friends. Right. Am I on the list of friends you're visiting? Honestly, no. Oh, okay. It was nice to see you, Gavin. You too, Anne-Marie. I thought that was the end of it. It was awkward, but not cringeworthy. I decided it went better than I could have hoped, since I hadn't planned on seeing her again. My peace of mind was short-lived when I noticed she was working at the register. She finished ringing up a customer before speaking again. Gavin, how long are you in town? Maybe a couple of days? Maybe we could meet up and talk, at least for a bit? I'll think about it. She handed me her business card. I left without saying a word. I really had nothing to say to her. I had really outdone myself. I hardly called. Against my better judgment, 2 nights later I found myself alone in a cozy corner of one of my favorite bars. Anna Marie and I often met here with friends on Fridays after work. The place was cozy, but not like it used to be, and she was clearly dressed up. A little black dress hugged her figure, which had filled out noticeably with age. Black shoes with 4-inch heels accentuated her legs. She had obviously spent time on her makeup, hair, and manicure. If she had been a stranger, I would have even offered her a drink. She really did look good. I didn't get up when she slid into the chair opposite me. She waited a few minutes before starting. You lied to me. You lied to me first. I knew what she was talking about. She knew what I meant. She graciously pretended to be embarrassed before continuing. I didn't think you were really going to leave town. I hoped we'd have a chance to talk. What was the point? I don't know, I really don't, but I know I was unhappy when you left me. You didn't leave me any choice, so I don't feel guilty for your unhappiness. She was a little surprised by my tone. I wasn't being cruel, just honest. Gavin, I never stopped loving you even when I did that. I sighed. I wondered if she was going to go down that road. Anne-Marie, the only good thing about our divorce is that you never lied to me. Probably because I never gave you a chance to. But I'm not going to sit here any longer if you're going to lie to me now. What do you want? Why are we sitting here? This isn't going to change anything. What happened between us is long in the past. But you never fought for me. You just gave up without even trying. It was so unexpected. Why did you walk away from me without even trying? I thought you loved me. Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. The way I saw it, you were the one who walked away from me. Without a word. You left without giving me a chance to fix what you thought was broken. I just put it down on paper. It was a mistake, Gavin. I made a huge mistake, and I'm sorry, okay? I couldn't help but groan. The years spent apart had brought me clarity. Apparently, those same years had driven Anne-Marie to the point of delirium. Like hell it was. A look of pain crossed her face and her eyes began to fill with tears. But everything she said was a lie. Just because things didn't turn out the way you wanted them to and you feel guilty, doesn't mean you can rewrite history. Please don't insult my intelligence by pretending you care about me. I do care about you, Gavin. I loved you. I still love you. Do you really mean that? Are you telling the truth? It's the truth, Gavin. All right, let's examine this theory. Was it you or Michael James who decided that I should be deprived of sex with my loving wife? She looked me straight in the eye, and for a moment there was a flash of shame in her gaze, but mostly she seemed unwilling to answer and probably regretted starting this conversation. It was him. So your endless love for me not only allowed you to spread your legs for another man, but also to submit to his desires, even though it clearly hurt me? Gavin, How long did you wait before you stopped taking the contraceptive? Pill? What? Well, I mean, you didn't get pregnant by accident. You decided to let him get you pregnant. It was what you wanted. When were you going to tell me that you were carrying the child you promised me? Or were you going to tell me that you were carrying my child, knowing that there was nothing between us? She didn't even bother to open her mouth to answer. Why aren't you with him? Where is he anyway? He didn't want me. His wife found out about the baby, and so did his boss at work. His wife divorced him, and he had to quit his job or he would have been fired. He left me. I had to quit my job too. I was too ashamed to stay there when everyone knew what had happened. And I'm supposed to feel guilty. Why? I don't know, Gavin, I really don't. I made a mistake, got involved in something bad, and couldn't stop myself. I know I did the wrong thing. Can't you forgive me? I love you. I died the day you left me, and I've missed you ever since. I wanted you to come back and give me another chance. I wanted you to give me the opportunity to apologize and promise that I would never do it again. I'm all alone, Gavin. My parents hardly speak to me. My brothers and sisters don't want to see me. I have no friends. I'm all alone. Anne-Marie, I forgave you. A long time ago. But I can't go back to what we had. As for everything else, you have your bastard. He'll keep you warm at night. That's cruel, Gavin. Not as cruel as your lies. I'm not lying, Gavin. I want another chance. I've dreamed about this for years. It'll never happen. Why, Gavin? I know you love me. You said so yourself. You said you'd always love me. I've always loved you. Why doesn't it work? For 2 reasons. First, I'm not the man I married. I've changed a lot. You don't know me anymore, and I certainly don't know you if I ever did. You know me, Gavin. I'm the same woman you loved. So your first reason doesn't matter. What about the second? You know, Anne-Marie, that's the first thing you said, and I sincerely believe it. But let me tell you the second reason, and then I'll ask you a question. You wanted someone else. I let you have what you wanted without saying a harsh word, because I loved you. Maybe now I love you differently. From the day I left you, I went to law school, passed my exams, started a new career, and built a new life. But the one thing I didn't do was take up another lover. I haven't been with another woman since the last time we made love. Let me ask you something. How many different men have you been with while you've been pining for me and our lost love? Anne-Marie couldn't even lift her eyes to look at me. See, I knew you were telling the truth, Anne-Marie. I didn't know it then, but the woman I loved was a lying, deceitful whore. How can I ever trust you again? Why should I? Give me one reason why I should take you back into my life that will benefit more than just you. If you can, maybe we still have a chance. She cried quietly as I got up to leave. I thought so. Goodbye, Anne-Marie. 3 months later, I saw them again. I was returning to Omaha to finish some business. Everything was going according to plan. Miguel and Marie were enjoying their new home and freedom. It warmed my heart to see them and talk to them when they were so happy. This time, the ladies weren't complaining, just giggling and smiling as they served customers. I was engrossed in my phone when I heard someone call my name. Mr. O'Connor. Yes, how can I help you? For a second, I didn't recognize them. After all, I had never seen them before. I didn't even know their names. I was completely confused. Ah, yes, Melvin. Sorry I couldn't find you. I should have called. How did it go? Fine, Mr. O'Connor. We would have contacted you, but we didn't even know how to thank you. You're welcome. My name is Gavin, and you're welcome too. I just wanted to earn some good karma. I'm glad everything worked out for you. I paused to assess the two young ladies. Only one of them had spoken. She was a very pretty brunette with a beautiful smile and curly hair falling over her shoulders. She was about 5'7" tall and had a very slim but healthy figure. Her companion looked shy. She was a little taller and much thinner. She had long, straight blonde hair. She didn't look unhealthy at all, just petite. And everything about her was in proportion. I would have thought she was afraid of me if it weren't for the slight smile on her face. They announced boarding for my flight again. Ladies, it's my flight again. It was nice to see you again. Sorry, I don't know your names. I'm Amy, and this is Lydia. We're cousins. Well, Amy and Lydia, it was nice to see you again. I was standing in line, about to hand my ticket to the agent, when Amy ran up to me. She handed me a napkin from their cafe with her phone number written on it. We have to thank you somehow. Will you call me when you get back? Since I was next in line to board, I just opened my mouth. Knowing myself, I probably would have declined if I had had time to think about it. Sure, no problem. Major holidays always brought the family together. Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the 4th of July, and May Day were all occasions to get together and celebrate. Asking everyone to gather in September was a little strange, but that's exactly what I did. I was surprised that everyone fit into the Santos' new flat. There wasn't enough room to sleep, but it was cozy enough for a gathering. Everyone sat down and stared at me. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life. Maybe they didn't think I had the right to do this, I don't know. But I felt like I was doing the right thing. And as Rothschild always said, I was following my heart. I wanted everyone to be here so that I only had to say this once and everyone would hear it at the same time. First, I want to say that being a full member of this family has been one of the greatest joys of my life. Miguel and Maria, your love and support have given me the strength to cope with very difficult circumstances. I will always be grateful to you for that. But I also remember that Anne-Marie was part of this family. She was able to share with this family both the joy of success and the pain of failure. She changed me, and because of that, I had to make some difficult decisions. But she never changed any of you. Just a few months ago, I spoke to her for the first time in 10 years. It was one of the most painful conversations of my life. I said some harsh words to her about her treatment of me. But while I have always been angry with her for her behavior, what she told me about you made me feel ashamed. So I say this with the utmost respect for all of you. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, forgive me for my words and my hasty departure, but I had to say it and do it. You all need to stop acting like a bunch of petty assholes and stop ostracizing your daughter and sister. And her daughter. And until she returns to this family where she has always belonged, I want nothing to do with you. Mr. and Mrs. Santos, I will not contact you and you should not contact me until this nonsense is over. The shocked expressions on their face didn't give me much satisfaction, but after saying those words, I walked away from my adoptive family, not expecting to see them again. The next year was quite stressful, both professionally and personally. We worked at such a pace in the office that we could have died if we had continued for much longer. After almost 8 weeks of 14-hour days and deals coming in one after another, Rothschild was furious. One evening in the conference room, she announced the following to us. "That's it. I've had enough. I can't stand the sight of any of you anymore. As of today, we're closing down. Get out of here and don't come back for a week. I'll pay you for the time if I don't have to look at you." With that, he left the building. I spent the first day of my forced exile cleaning my apartment. I had forgotten that I had furniture, which was buried under piles of papers, clothes, and food containers. I sorted my laundry into dry cleaning and washing, emptying my pockets in the process. And then I found a napkin with a number on it. On the morning of the third day of my exile, when the flat was cleaned and the wardrobe tidied, the napkin adorned my dining table as a centerpiece. I decided to call. I sounded like an idiot. "Hello? Yes, can I, speak to Amy, please?" "Is that her?" "Oh, um, hi, Amy, it's Gavin. O'Connor. I was at the airport. You gave me your number at the airport." "Oh my God. You probably remember me from the airport. You gave me your number a few weeks ago and asked me to call." I was sure the red blush on my face was visible on the other end of the phone line. "Hi, Gavin. Of course I remember you. How could I forget?" "Well, I realize this is very unexpected, and you probably already have plans, but I was hoping that you and Lydia might be able to have dinner with me. Well, I was hoping I could cook dinner for you at my flat, and you could tell me how things are going with the flat." "Well, tonight, I was thinking. We've been kicked out of the office for a week, and I'm bored. And although I'm sure I should have put in a few commas, I was hoping you could have dinner tonight. With me. At my flat." She giggled. I frowned. "Gavin, we'd love to have dinner at your flat, and tonight works for us." "Great. Excellent. That's good." "Gavin?" "Yes. Can you give me your address?" "Oh, yes, of course." My humiliation was complete. I couldn't even invite a couple of people over for dinner. I much preferred talking to Amy and Lydia face to face, even though Lydia was still silent. She looked me in the eyes and smiled, and that was more than enough for me. "Great flat, Gavin. You must love throwing parties here." My flat was quite impressive, although I didn't have any particular attachment to it. It was the central building on an undeveloped site. Rothschild and I were in the process of restructuring the developer's financing. As it happened, a 3-bedroom penthouse was listed for sale at below market value, and I jumped at the opportunity. I had a fantastic view of the strip and a great bachelor pad that was hardly ever used for its intended purpose. I liked the place so much that I decided to spend a little more, but I didn't mention that I owned the building. "Actually, apart from my boss, you're the first guest I've ever had." "Really? What about your girlfriend?" "Oh, I don't have a girlfriend. I haven't been on a date since I got divorced, and that was 10 years ago." Amy and Lydia sat on bar stools at the kitchen island and drank wine. Amy asked me one question after another. It was very nice to talk to someone other than my boss and colleagues. I was cooking pasta, working on the sauce, and chatting nonstop. I didn't even notice that I was answering all her questions. I guess I just felt comfortable talking to them. I couldn't explain it, but then the conversation stopped. When I turned around, they were both staring at me with their mouths open. "Did I say something that upset you? I'm sorry, did I say something?" "You haven't been on a date in 10 years, Gavin?" "Well, no, I haven't. I was studying, working, and it never even crossed my mind." "Is that weird?" Yes." Even Lydia nodded. "Well, I never really thought about it. I guess it is strange." "Hmm. Oh my God, Gavin, I just can't believe it." "Well, it's true. Dinner's ready. Let's sit down." Dinner was a lot of fun. There was a lot of laughter and smiles. I learned all about Amy and Lydia. Amy was in her final year of university studying hotel management, and Lydia was studying English and writing creative works. I asked Lydia if I could read some of her work. Amy said she probably wouldn't mind. They exchanged glances that I couldn't understand. They were both 22 years old and had been living together since they were 18, when Lydia's parents died in a car accident. Continuing to live together while attending college seemed like the perfect solution. Amy said that Lydia liked me and that she would talk to me when she got to know me better. I dropped the subject. However, there was a strange, tense atmosphere in the room all night. Maybe it was the wine or my complete lack of social skills, but I felt like they were both flirting with me. A couple of times I secretly chastised myself for even thinking that about two young women who were my guests. But not too hard. To be honest, I was glad of the attention even if it was just a fantasy conjured up by my imagination. At the end of the evening, both girls hugged me and kissed me on the cheek. They left and Amy said we should meet up soon. I jokingly replied that I was free all week and they could come over whenever they wanted. I was genuinely surprised when they showed up the next day before lunch with a basket full of food. We had lunch on the balcony and enjoyed the day until the temperature became unbearable to stay outside. Then they both left for work. It seemed they had really taken my invitation to heart. The next evening, after class, they returned with pizza, popcorn, and a film. They sat on the sofa, and I settled into my favorite armchair. The next day, Amy was a little nervous about asking permission to use the pool. She wondered if there were any rules about using the pool in the guest house. I smiled and said I'd take care of it. When they arrived the next day, I had a surprise for them. I got them the keys to the pool and the gym, as well as the locker in the women's lounge. Sometimes being king is good. They had a surprise for me too. When they came out of the bedroom in their bikinis, I realized I would have to increase the intensity of my daily workouts. For a few moments, I was sure I was going to have a heart attack when they walked into the pool. After my week of exile was over, we settled into a normal routine. I would go to work and come home. 3 or 4 days a week, the girls would stop by for dinner, to watch a film or just to chat. On Saturdays or Sundays, we usually found something to do for the three of us. The girls also went to the gym almost every day, although I was usually at work. Rothschild was ecstatic when he had new material to tease me with. If I didn't know your pathetic ass so well, I'd think you were dating two women at the same time. Come on, man, we're just friends. And for God's sake, keep your dirty fantasies to yourself. About 4 months into our friendship, I realized something was wrong. One Friday evening, we were having a quiet dinner at my place, but the girls were unusually reserved. As dinner was coming to an end, I couldn't take the mounting tension any longer. Girls, is something wrong? No, it's nothing, Gavin. Lydia just wanted to ask you something, but she doesn't know how to put it. Amy, you know you can ask me anything. I'm not shy about talking to you two. Just ask if you promise you won't be offended by my answer. Okay, fine. Why haven't you made a move on us yet? Don't you like us? I was a little taken aback by the question. It took me a moment to gather my thoughts. Well, that's a tough question. All I'll say is that you're both stunningly beautiful young women, but I've never made a move on you for 2 reasons. First, I don't want to ruin our friendship by offending you or making you think I'm some dirty old man who's hanging around two hot students to take his mind off things. And second, I don't even know how to make a move. I've never had the opportunity to use them. I don't even know where to start. Amy and Lydia looked at each other. Then Lydia smiled and nodded. Amy took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Gavin, Lydia and I want you to know that we really enjoy spending time with you, and we both love you very much. I enjoy spending time with you too. But Lydia and I are looking for someone special, and we want you to know exactly what that means. Girls, I said what I think. You are both very attractive, and I can say with complete confidence that neither of you will have any trouble finding someone special. I think each of you will find that person without any problem. For a moment, I thought Lydia was going to say something. She was almost begging Amy to continue. We don't want each of us to have our own special someone. We want one special person, just one. And we think that person could be you. No, better yet, we think that person is you. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I didn't even have time to finish before she continued. But we want you to understand exactly what we're asking before we take the next step. Lydia asked me to ask you to spend an evening reading some of her work. She believes, and I agree, that this will give you some idea of what she's looking for. Then we'd like to come back tomorrow and talk about what this means for us, and for you. Well, for all of us. Can you do that? I think I can, although I must admit I'm a little confused. You just want me to read her stories? Yes, Gavin. And tomorrow we'd like to talk about them and about us. Okay, I can do that. Now I realize that some of you may have the wrong impression of me. I have strong beliefs about what I think is right and wrong. That's true. These beliefs have always guided my actions. I also have opinions about how people should treat those close to me, especially my friends and family. In addition, I try to be kind to strangers and those I don't know very well but have to interact with on a daily basis. However, I am not so self-centered as to think that everyone shares my opinion, so I adhere to a live and let live philosophy. As long as a person does not harm others, I have no opinion about how they live their life. Want to have 19 children, a wife, and 4 dogs? I don't mind, just treat them well. However, I can also be very harsh. Those who have crossed paths with me in business deals have regretted it. Rothschild called it my Jekyll and Hyde quality. He said that I always gave people the benefit of the doubt, treated them with excessive respect, but when someone crossed my path, he believed that I would sometimes cut their heart out with a spoon just to watch them die. He found it amusing. I considered it a gross exaggeration. But I did have a temper. I don't think I was like that before Anne-Marie broke my heart. Until then, I had never experienced someone betraying my trust so dramatically. That incident made me very loyal to those who earned my trust and extremely vengeful towards those who abused it. For a long time after the divorce, I had almost no sex drive. I was too consumed by the pain of the divorce to even think about it. Anything that reminded me even slightly of Anne-Marie made me feel suffocated. I coped by ignoring those thoughts and focusing on my studies or work. It took a long time for that pain to subside. I always thought that finding the love of my life at such a young age was great, but it turned out that I had missed out on a lot of life experience that could have been useful in my situation. I had never asked a girl out on a date. I never had a one-night stand. I had no idea how to get a girl's attention, let alone a woman's. Unfortunately, because of this, I was too afraid of rejection to even try. I was confident in many things, but thanks to Anne-Marie, satisfying a woman was an impossible task for me. Before I knew it, 10 years had passed, and I began to think that I would never have the chance to try something new. It was with these thoughts in mind that I read Lydia's stories. They were stunningly vivid, written historical canvases that truly showcased her creative abilities. She wrote like a poet and portrayed her characters so clearly that I felt like I had known some of them my whole life. I learned a lot about Lydia from her stories. When the girls arrived around noon the next day, I was very afraid that I would ruin several wonderful new friendships. We took our drinks and snacks and went into the living room. Amy got straight to the point. Lydia and I are not sexually involved. Okay, that's probably important to know, but to be honest, I hadn't thought about it. Lydia just smiled, and Amy continued. Lydia and I have always cared about each other. We weren't just cousins. We've been best friends for as long as I can remember. When we started getting interested in boys, we always talked about who we liked, what we did with our boys, and, more importantly, what we wanted to do with our boys. I was always attracted to sweet, caring boys. Lydia, on the other hand, was always drawn to more aggressive alpha males. The guys she dated were great in bed, but they behaved like pieces of shit on dates. I guess even though I understood what she needed and even understood what attracted her, I just didn't want her to get hurt. They sat next to each other holding hands. Then our worst fears came true. One of Lydia's boyfriends became overly aggressive. A few weeks later, Lydia found out she was pregnant. Things went wrong and she started having problems. Long story short, she had to terminate the pregnancy for her health, but there were complications. Because of that, Lydia can't have children. Both of them had tears in their eyes. We had dreamed of having children since we were children. We were only 19, and that dream ended before it even began. But I love Lydia more than a cousin and more than a friend. I knew she would always be in my life. We talked and decided together that our dream didn't have to end. I would love Lydia's children as my own, and I knew she would love mine as her own. So we agreed that we would share my children and raise them together as co-mothers. They both looked at me, apparently to gauge my reaction. I didn't know what to say. It seemed to me that Amy was describing one of the most selfless acts I had ever heard of. I had always known that there was an unspoken closeness between them, and now that I knew the whole story, everything fell into place. I think that's one of the saddest, kindest, and most beautiful stories I've ever heard. They both smiled. But then we had another problem. Before we could approach anyone with our idea, we had to find the right candidate. And after a while, we realized we'd have to give up. The guys I liked were too weak for Lydia. The guys who caught Lydia's attention were always too arrogant for me. So we were looking for the impossible, handsome, kind, gentle, loving, super confident alpha males. And then we met you, Lydia whispered. It was the first time Lydia had ever spoken to me. My heart started beating faster. Amy continued. Without knowing us, you solved our problem without even asking for thanks. It was one of the kindest things anyone had ever done for us. And at the same time, you just took everything upon yourself. You identified our problem, offered a solution, told us what to do, and then left without saying a word. It was so perfect that we didn't even know how to approach you without ruining the relationship. And then we met again and started talking to you. We got to know the real you, not the one we dreamed about, and it was wonderful. And then we decided to take a chance and let you into our world without any secrets. That way, if you decided we were crazy, we'd have a chance to remain friends, even if you rejected us. Now I really didn't know what to say. I was sure I'd just been offered a life with two beautiful women, but that couldn't possibly satisfy me. Okay, this is too much for me. I need some time to think about it. Let's take a break. I promise we'll talk more over the weekend. Of course, Gavin, we understand, Amy replied. They left quickly. I felt a little disappointed. I already knew what my answer would be, but I wanted to give them an answer that matched their offer. They had thought about it a lot and were clearly sharing something very personal with me. I wanted my answer to reflect that. I quickly did a few things to get ready for the evening and returned to the flat around 3 o'clock. I took out my mobile and home phone and sat down at the kitchen table. I wrote a text message to Lydia and then called Amy. Hello? Hi, Amy, it's Gavin. I pressed send. Hi, Gavin. Amy, I wanted to ask if you'd like to go out with me tonight. Maybe we could have dinner and a drink or two? Lydia's mobile phone rang in the background. A few seconds later, I heard her sigh in surprise. Gavin, I'd love to have dinner with you tonight. Great. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock, if that works for you. Sounds great. Great. See you soon. I hung up and waited for Lydia's reply. Her invitation was much riskier, but I hoped my hunch was right. My message read, Be at my place at 6:15. Don't be late. You're staying the night. I answered honestly, Perfect. I took the flowers to Amy's door. When she opened the door, I was taken aback. I know every girl has a little black dress, maybe even a few. Anne-Marie always wore hers on special occasions. I can say that I've never seen a dress as perfect as the one Amy was wearing. I handed her the flowers, a small bouquet of white lilies. Wow, you look amazing! Thank you, Gavin, for the flowers and the compliment. My evening with Amy was romantic. We drank a bottle of wine and ate sushi at one of her favorite restaurants. Then we went to one of my favorite nightclubs for drinks. The tall, round booths provided the perfect privacy for conversation. And so we started talking. We talked about our dreams and plans for the future. We talked about what we thought about children and family. We talked about partners and commitments. We grew closer. I could feel it. By the end of the evening, her eyes were shining. In the early evening, we took a walk through the local park holding hands. For a few minutes, we just walked and enjoyed each other's company. As we stood at the door to her flat, I couldn't hide the worry on my face. Well, what's bothering you, Gavin? Why me, Amy? I'm 10 years older than you. I'm divorced. Every man and woman we walked past tonight was practically glued to you. You could have any man you want. Gavin, at some point, I'm sure you'll understand, but tonight, can you just believe me that you're the one? I know it. There's no one else. Yes, I can live with that. Thank you for a wonderful evening, Amy. No, Gavin, thank you. I wasn't a big fan of organized religion, but I always appreciated the solemnity and community of large holiday church services. I had to convert to Catholicism to marry Anne-Marie, and during our marriage I was a faithful parishioner, so it felt strange to be sitting in my former church on Easter Sunday. I was a little confused about the start time of the service and had been sitting alone in the back of the church for about 15 minutes when she sat down next to me. This seems like a good place to confess. I'm sorry, Gavin, I've sinned. Anne-Marie, I forgave you a long time ago. You know that. Oh, I know, Gavin, but you forgave me when I didn't deserve it and when I wasn't sorry for what I did. But now, Gavin, I finally realize how much pain I caused you. If I could, I would give anything not to have betrayed you. To be honest, I always thought you deserved someone better than me. I'm so sorry I couldn't be the woman you deserve. And I want to thank you for giving me my family back. My father told me that you were the reason they came to me. You have always been and will always be a good man, Gavin. Thank you, Anne-Marie. I appreciate your apology, and you will always be a welcome guest. The Mass went well. Easter brunch was plentiful, but as the day wore on, I realized that when Anne-Marie and her daughter returned to their seats, there was no place left for me in the Santos family. It was time to move on. When it was time to leave, there were a few tearful goodbyes. I think we all understood what my goodbyes really meant. As my journey came to a close, Maria Santos hugged me at the door, letting me know she understood more than she was saying. When she finally let me go, she put her hand on my cheek, closed her eyes, and paused for a moment. When she opened her eyes again, she said in a voice only I could hear, "God bless you, mijo. I'll miss you." My personal life was abnormal. For several months, Amy, Lydia, and I lived on a strange schedule. We spent an enormous amount of time together as a platonic threesome. If Amy and Lydia had lived with me full-time, the difference in the amount of time we spent together each week probably wouldn't have been more than a couple of hours. I was insanely happy dating Amy. There was nothing between us except kissing. She just said we'd both understand when the time came. I couldn't disagree with her. I just didn't feel like we were ready to take the next step. But the weirdest thing was that she didn't mind making me nervous and then sending me back to Lydia to calm me down. Of course, I didn't put up much of a fight. Lydia, for her part, was delighted. Amy told me that from the first time we met, Lydia had told her that I was perfect. Apparently, I was good at reading between the lines. Lydia was submissive in every sense of the word. She needed to be led. It made her feel secure and cared for. Amy had managed their daily affairs for many years, and gradually that role passed to me. Obviously, the flowers were the deciding factor. I didn't think about giving girls flowers. It just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I gave Amy flowers at the beginning of our first date and on other random occasions because it was romantic. The flowers for Lydia were more of a thank you, and due to certain circumstances, they had to be delivered at a different time. My first real date with Amy went great, but when I returned to my flat, where Lydia was waiting for me, I began to worry that I wouldn't be able to give her what she needed. I shouldn't have worried. Over the next few months, I spent hours thinking about the best way to win Lydia over. But on that first evening, instinct decided everything. When Lydia walked into the room with the widest smile I had ever seen on her face, holding flowers in her hands, I was finally able to take my first full breath of the day. Mission accomplished. As I left Omaha for the last time, I savored every minute. I told myself over and over again that I had survived Anne-Marie's betrayal. I told myself I had a new life. I had a new life and a new career. I had money, and I convinced myself that it was enough. But that was exactly what I was missing. A real sense of closure and a real sense of peace. I knew what I needed now. Happiness. On the way home, I made one stop, went into a shop and bought two things. It didn't take long. Having money has its advantages. The girls were happy to see me, and as usual, we all sat down to dinner. The conversation was light and cheerful. Everything was fine with us. We had a pretty good life. I hoped to make it even better. Amy and Lydia cleared the table and went into the kitchen to wash the dishes and load the dishwasher. I stood behind them for a long time, just watching them work together, enjoying the tedious work because they were together. I know why we haven't had sex yet. Lydia turned to me, but Amy didn't move, preferring to keep her eyes fixed on the sink. When we first make love, it will be because the most important goal a couple can have is to create life, to give a part of yourself for one beautiful shared purpose. That's why we'll be together. But you will have an even more important goal. You will share your beautiful gift to give Lydia and me what we cannot have on our own. Only you can give Lydia and me what we are missing. You will give us the most important thing a person can give: a child. Lydia smiled, but tears streamed down her cheeks. I think you've waited patiently for me to get to this point, and I think you've waited long enough. I knelt down and took a box out of my pocket. When I opened it, Lydia started jumping up and down and clapping her hands quietly. Amy slowly turned to me, holding back her tears. "Amy, will you marry me?" "Yes, Gavin, I will marry you and love you forever, giving you everything I have." After agreeing, Amy and Lydia hugged each other first. It was a beautiful example of how close they are and how we all need each other, each with our own unique talents that, when combined, perfectly complement our lives. I put the ring on Amy's finger and Lydia said approvingly, "What a beautiful ring, Gavin. Oh, I won't forget you, dear. You will be a constant and important part of our lives, and I don't want you to ever think for a second that I've forgotten that." I took the second box out of my pocket and opened it so the girls could see the anklet with a diamond in the center of a Celtic knot. The three corners of the knot were adorned with stones corresponding to their birthstones: ruby, sapphire, and amethyst. "Lydia, we love you and need you. Please don't ever leave us." Amy was crying, but Lydia was surprisingly calm as I slipped the bracelet onto her ankle. I'm home, Gavin. I'm not going anywhere. 3 months later, we were married in a small ceremony. Lydia stood next to Amy, Rothschild next to me. 6 months later, Aidan James O'Connor joined us. A year and a half later, twins Sophie Marie and Stephen Michael were born. 11 months later, little Olivia Rose joined our family. Our boys looked like me. Sophie was a mini copy of Amy, and Olivia was a clone of Lydia, with a symmetry that could only be described as divine. A strong bond formed between them immediately. Did Amy and I envy the fact that Olivia treated Lydia as her only mother and us as her beloved aunt and uncle? No, not for a second. Amy and I lived as husband and wife, but Lydia was always there. I started out as a happily married man, but I lost everything. My path to happiness was long, but I found my place again. Our life together was as perfect as a relationship can be. I loved Amy, Lydia, and our children. Amy loved me, Lydia, and our children. Lydia loved Amy, needed me, and treated our children with the love that only a mother can give. No one ever told anyone about our lifestyle, only our closest friends know the truth. And we live a very happy life. Together. The end. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.